And this one is an area control game, but this one is a little bit different than most area control games that I've seen, because although you are trying to control the board to get the best advantage, you're actually trying to fulfill different requirements of the different areas in order to take control of that land, and then add that land tile to your own personal player board. And when you take that land tile, that is yours permanently, but a new one is revealed for you or another player to try and conquer. The game uses a hex board with 5 different spaces generating resources to any of the players currently standing on those spaces. Then there's also 6 different land tiles, and the 2 land tiles in the middle will provide an action that are available to any of the players that are able to land on that tile. But instead of players being able to collect these red tiles, they actually decay with every use, being replaced once they've been fully decayed. Players will be collecting the different resources to generate crystals, which I will come back to in a second. And each player will also be starting the game with their own shadow die that they'll be starting at the side with the 4. Each player's turn is going to be broken down into 3 different phases, and the first phase is going to allow you to perform 2 actions out of a possible of 4 options, and you can perform the same action twice. And the first option is to just draw 5 cards from the common pile into your hand, and these cards are going to be coming in a few different colors, but the color that matches your player color is going to make those cards a little bit more valuable to you, which I will come back to in a second. The second option is to just play those cards from your hand, and you'll be able to discard those cards in order to increase the value of your shadow die for each card that you discard. And the shadow die is something you're going to be managing throughout the game because it does have a few really important uses. And the first one is for movement, which is your third option. And in order to perform the movement action, you're going to be moving your miniature the number of pips as displayed on your shadow die. But then after you do that, you're going to be decreasing that die by 1 pip. And the fourth and final option is to choose one of your opponent's characters that are in line of sight of one of your characters out on the main board, and then you can discard a crystal to either do one of 2 things. You can either increase your shadow die by the amount that their shadow die is displaying, or instead you could use one of the powers from one of the lands that they have controlled. And as I said, when you do gain control of a land, you're going to be slotting it into your own personal player board, granting you access to that ability or your opponents if they are using this action. And during the second phase of your turn, you'll be resolving any of the movement effects, like gaining any of the resources for the tiles that you moved into. But it's at this point on your turn that you can also spend pips on your shadow die equal to the amount shown on a unrevealed location in order to reveal that location. And of course, you'll only really want to be doing this if you think that you're going to be the one to get there first and that you'll be able to fulfill the requirements of that location. So you'll probably want to reveal the ones that are closest to your characters. But if you did end your turn in a hex that also has an opponent player, this is going to trigger a battle. And it's in the battles where your cards really come into play, because any of the cards that have your color on it are going to be worth 2 battle points, while any of the other cards are going to be worth 1. And you can either spend that to inflict damage on your opponent or to heal your own wounds. But there are also 3 different colored battle dice, and at the start of the battle, each player can choose to discard one of their crystals in order to gain access to that battle die. And of course, you'll each be able to roll whichever ones you've claimed in order to get additional battle points to spend towards healing or damage. But another effect of this is whichever die that you claim will restrict your opponent from using battle cards of that color. Players will be gaining victory points depending on the outcome of the battle, and you could also cause one of your opponent's miniatures to be kicked off the board. That's everything that happens in the second phase, but then the third phase is an optional phase where the player can choose to convert any of their crystals into victory points. The game ends once one of 3 possible triggers are hit. Either a player has completely filled up their player board by claiming 6 different lands, or 3 of the magic land piles are fully depleted, or a single player has lost all of their crystals. Any of the players that have completely lost their crystals will instantly lose the game, but for any of the players that remain, the one with the highest victory points wins the game.